So let me give you my sort of biographical story and my obsession with what I call fat tails. To explain fat tails, what you have here is the performance of an option portfolio, the variation in price of an option portfolio, daily variation, over 57 years. Okay, so out of the money options that are remote, it's about 12,000 days, something like that, 14,000 days. And as you can see, there's a big spike. For that portfolio, that day represents, depends on what you've been doing, between 80 and 99% of your total lifetime variation. If you're an option trader, one day in your life should represent 98% of the variation if you're involved in remote payoffs. This, in other words, is what I call fat tails. And this is, of course, if you don't get that day right, you're not going to get anything right. And it's not predictable. Okay, they tell you it's predictable. If you go to the finance building, they think it's predictable. If you go to the economics building, they're convinced it's predictable. It is not predictable. So that's the problem, that they are events that have a huge impact, and we can't tell ahead of time when they're going to come, and we have no idea about their structure. And people fool themselves thinking they have an idea about the structure. So you have to understand what domains are affected by these large deviations. And also, I don't know if someone here is from Brooklyn, but in Brooklyn they say that you should make lemonade every time someone gives you a lemon. So you got to make lemonade out of it. So this is the idea that we have. There's a huge amount of these events, the rare event representing a large share of the pie. Now you live here at the epicenter of rare events, okay? Google represents this spike in its own business, all right? Microsoft was Microsoft. It's still Microsoft, but you know, it's even more Microsoft than it is today. There was 50,000 computer companies, and it had more than half the sales in that segment. Okay, if you take the stock market over the past 100 years, a lot of companies joined, a lot of companies left. There are about 12,000 surviving companies that are listed. Of these 12,000 companies, how many companies represent half the capitalization? What do you think? Sorry? Well, when I was trading, some years it was 50 to 100. Some years it was 300 to 400. There's no structure. Okay. Another example, for example, is the book business. So I don't know if you know about the book business. There are 1 million manuscripts in the English language on the market today by people who call themselves writers, but typically they work in the US. They work for Starbucks. In Europe, they do other things. They work for the government. So they call themselves writers. They're novels. Of the 1 million novels, literary novels, about 20,000 will be published. Of these, half the sales will come from how many books?
20%.
Sorry?
20% maybe?
20%, no, between 5 and 15. Some years less than 5. Okay, it's not 20%. It's really, we are in what I call Extremistan. So let me give you an idea of what is Extremistan. If I can figure out how to work this computer. If you imagine that you have a convention here and you bring in a random selection of people from the planet, 1,000 people, bring them to Stanford, nice weather, you know, this is a great way to convince people to come, and put them on a scale, all right? You weigh them, you add to that sample the heaviest person you can find on the planet who can still be called a person. How much of the total will that person represent? Sorry? Okay, so it's 3 times the average, as we say in finance, 30 basis points, all right? 0.3%. And if you move from 1,000 to 10,000, how much will that person represent? Nothing, 3 basis points. Okay, so the maximum you can get will affect your average very little. This is commonly known as the law of what? Large numbers. about everything you do that's statistically based is based on that law. That as your sample becomes larger, no deviation is going to mess up things for you. You agree? If you eat, I eat, I consume 800,000 calories a year. Not a single day is going to make me, double my weight, all right? Thank God. But unfortunately, not a single day will make me lose half my weight unless, I have surgery, all right? So the problem is that, but in finance, can you lose half your fortune in one day? Of course. When I became a pit trader, I walked in, there's something called new member, a badge, means rookie. So you get abused by old traders who are bored, want to give someone advice for life, so they grab you. So one guy grabbed me, hey, come over here, kiddo. He said, okay, I showed up. He said, that was before this event, incidentally. He said, listen, you see the guy over there? I said, yes. He said, his name is Ed. I said, yes. He said, at the time, it was a lot of money. He made $7 million in 7 years. I said, yes. He said, he lost them all in 7 seconds. Okay, kid. I said, kiddo, now you can go, all right? That was his advice, that you can, that you're in Extremistan, the reasoning is different. So everything's moved by extremes in economic life. And visibly, you're here for that, to understand that point. And we're going to take it to its conclusion. In Extremistan, okay, things are unpredictable. In Mediocrestan, you can predict things, all right? So that's point number one. Unpredictability is a problem of course, in the real world, unlike the textbooks. I guess you've seen this before. You recognize this item? This is commonly known as what? A wheel. Very good. When was it discovered? Sorry, a long time ago. How long ago? About at least 6,000 years ago, all right? Babylonian technology, all right? So this is technology. So let's see, moving from this technology to this technology. You guys are too young to remember the days when it had to carry our luggage because it didn't have a wheel. How long did it take? 6,000 years to this discovery, all right?